You know, lately we've been covering so many depressing topics, and everything we've been talking about has been such a downer that I feel we've all earned a little bit of a vacation, A little bit of a palate cleanser, a break, if you will. And I think we can all agree a fantastic palate cleanser would be getting to hear a politician that we all actually like, who is an actual human with a soul, speak. And I think we all know who that is. It's Bernie Sanders. You see, earlier today, about 5 or 6 hours ago, if I'm not mistaken, Bernie Sanders did a big Senate speech where he brought out like a big poster board and binder and did a big presentation arguing about why the U.S. should stop supplying high explosive bombs to Israel, right? And mind you, these are offensive weapons, not defensive weapons, right? He's talking about no longer supplying Israel's ability to engage in attacks on Gaza, and goes on to show a lot of different examples of the damage caused in Gaza, tons of slides of damaged buildings, hospitals, schools, and all the miles and miles and miles of city that have been turned to rubble. And he also goes through a bunch of the names of people who have died, particularly children, who had no connection to Hamas, mind you. And it was very compelling, but you gotta keep in mind, Republicans, they're evil. They weren't moved by it in the slightest. It made no difference in things, but I think it's important to know that Bernie is out there in a public platform, and as the minority party, I almost feel like you get more eyes on you in a way. And in Bernie Sanders' place, he's got a lot of eyes on him, and a lot of people saw what he had to say, and I think it was probably pretty compelling. I think that this could have stirred up a significant amount of fervor among a lot more Americans than before, that maybe of all the things we are spending our tax money on in this country, all the defense spending to Israel might be a little bit of a waste. Not all of it, but a fair amount of it. Maybe that's where a lot of that wasteful and fraudulent spending actually was, and not trying to cure cancer and the other medical research that Trump and Elon decided to cut full funding for because they Control F'd and found any of them referenced the letters T, R, A, N, and S together at all. Not transgender, trans. Oh, is this a study on the healthiness of trans fats? That's woke. Cut off all the funding. It says trans. They did that. They literally did that. Anyway, I actually want to know from you guys, how have you been feeling about Bernie lately? I've seen some people complaining because he's been collabing with Hasan and stuff, and yeah, Hasan, I've got some problems with him. I don't agree with everything that he says and does, by a long shot, and I think he's kind of a dick, but he's also the largest progressive political figure out there. If a Democrat politician is gonna do anything with a progressive figure from the internet, it's probably going to be Hasan. That's just where all of the lefty content viewers online are sending their support, and so he's the one who gets to talk to the big Democrat people. The only downside of it, I guess, is that Hasan definitively does not support the Democratic Party. So much so to the point where Hasan, when he voted for whoever he voted for on stream, he did not say who he voted for, and he explicitly said, "I will not tell you who to vote for. All I'll say is don't vote for Trump." So not only did he not say or show whether or not he voted for Kamala Harris, he did not tell his fans to vote for Kamala Harris, and implied that telling his fans to vote for Kamala Harris would be wrong, and thus they should not do it. Great monster. Regardless, that election has passed, and right now what we need to focus on is building a cultural presence for the left. And as much as I dislike Hasan, and as much as I like Bernie, and hate that they're interacting on a positive basis, that does, on an objective level, my feelings aside, I think contribute in some manner to achieving that. most normies don't know who Hasan is or how much negative baggage he carries, so seeing him and Bernie on a large platform that's going to reach a lot of people, talk about important issues they probably care about, it's going to have an impact, and it's probably going to help. And so Bernie has definitely been on that grind lately, and he just recently released a video. By that I mean like right after his big presentation 6 hours ago, and it's got already well over 250,000 views already. So people are watching this. The video is called "Where Do We Go From Here?" and I have not watched a bit of it yet, but people have asked me to check it out because apparently Bernie cooks here, and I would love to see what the Bernie is cooking. So yeah, let's go ahead and take a look. By the way, comment down below how you're feeling about Bernie right now. If you're watching this after the fact, or in the chat if you're watching it live. I did ask before, but I don't know if anybody answered. Because I've seen some people kind of feeling like Bernie is like falling off. I don't know why. I do have some criticisms of him, but I don't feel like he's done anything. I don't feel like Bernie's done anything super like objectionable lately, or done anything that like should make me drop support for him. I know that like there's the Hasan thing, but that's nothing really all that out there. I think there might have been something to do with not showing up to another vote, maybe. I don't think it would have made a difference, though, so who cares? I don't know. Regardless, though, I think Bernie is cool. I think Bernie is cool, as he makes his iconic wide-eyed expression on the first frame. Let's hop right into it, guys.
Thanks very much for joining me. Tonight we're gonna...
Wait. The American people are tired of women. I had to. Iconic Bernie quote.
Do a bad news, good news routine. So stay with me. We start off with the bad news, which is pretty bad, but we are going to get to a happier ending. Let me begin by just telling you what you already know. And that is that under Donald Trump, this country is hurtling rapidly toward oligarchy, toward authoritarianism, toward kleptocracy, and toward more and more income and wealth inequality.
True.
That is what is happening.
That's objectively true.
You'll all remember that...
I mean, I don't even know if he recorded this before the news came out about the stock market. We'll get into that in a little bit, but man, Trump has destroyed the American economy about as fast as I think any president could have done so. I don't think he could have fucked it up any worse, any faster if he actively tried to.
Abraham Lincoln talked about a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. I think it is very clear that today we have a government of the billionaire class, by the billionaire class, and for the billionaire class.
Ooh.
Elon Musk...
Wait, no, this is a really good one. Okay, when you watch this on YouTube after the fact, when it goes up, I don't want you to just tell me what you think of Bernie. I want you to leave in your comment your political position, like where you'd peg yourself if you gave yourself a label, if you're into that. If you're comfortable giving yourself a label, what would you say you were? And what is your position on Bernie? Because what I'm really curious about is to see how widespread that phenomena we saw in AOC's district in New York was. AOC's district went to Trump and to her, meaning a shitload of people in her voting district marked Trump down for their presidential vote and AOC down for their congressional vote in their congressional district. And they voted for her to be their congresswoman, which sounds insane because they're like polar opposites of the political spectrum, right? But there's a phenomenon there where people see them both as outsiders who aren't bought out by like the traditional Washington money and politics game. And this means that there are a surprising amount of like libertarians and conservatives that actually kind of like Bernie and AOC. And I'm curious how widespread that is. So let me know in the comments. I want to see how many libertarians and conservatives actually like Bernie.
Contributed $277 million to get Donald Trump elected president. And he was rewarded with the most important position in government. In other words, he put out the money and he got what he paid for. Trump also nominated 13 other billionaires to head various government agencies. So almost all the guys who are running the government are billionaires. For many years, as I think you know, I have been talking about how a country is moving toward an oligarchic form.
Keep in mind, though, dude, we're going to hear plenty over the next 4 years about how both sides, both parties, are supposedly so corrupt and so bought out with money and billionaires and insider trading, and everyone's just in it for enriching themselves on both sides. We're going to hear so many both sides
Of society. And I know that people had their doubts. What is Bernie talking about? Well, not anymore. People now see what's going on right in front of them. No secrets about it. They're seeing the billionaire class running our government right now. But it's not just oligarchy and a government of the very rich that I'm concerned about. It is a very rapid movement toward authoritarianism. Virtually every day, Trump is usurping the powers of Congress. He is ending programs that Congress appropriated, and he's getting rid of agencies that he has no power to get rid of. Further, he has sued major media outlets like ABC, CBS, Meta, and the Des Moines Register for stories and actions that he didn't like.
Keep in mind, since 2016, or I guess 2015, Trump has ran on a policy of expanding libel and defamation laws. He wants to make those laws stronger so it's easier to sue people as a public figure, or as a public figure if they are a public figure, when they say something bad about you. He wanted to lean things heavier on the, was there damages? Okay, well, you win. Not, did you maliciously lie about someone? Okay, well, you lose, right? And so, yeah, like, Trump wants to make it easier for him to sue people that talk badly about him and for others with his wealth to do that, to those that criticize them. It is very much the prerogative of the billionaire class to want to protect themselves from journalists that expose their behaviors. We all know, like, the billionaires are some shady motherfuckers. They're always up to something, and journalists are always creeping on them, catching them doing shit, finding out their dirty secrets, finding the skeletons in their closets, and they hate it. They hate it. Every billionaire is screaming and cheering from the bleachers, hoping Trump expands the freedom for them to spend their immense wealth to silence anyone who would expose their behavior to the wider public. Believe me, that he's been running on that principle since the start. Bernie's totally right here.
And now his FCC is investigating PBS and NPR.
Yep.
And he's threatening to withhold federal funding for these vitally important media outlets. This is clearly a massive attack on the First Amendment and freedom of expression. He doesn't like what some media are saying, and he is intimidating them. The message is clear. Hey, I'm the boss. Don't you dare criticize me. But it's not just Congress and the media that he's going after. He's also waging a massive attack against the judicial system. Unbelievably, he is actually trying to impeach judges who render decisions that he doesn't like.
This is critical. A lot of people who maybe aren't American, or they aren't super giga autistic about American politics, may not be fully aware about how intensely powerful local judges are. Or especially a state Supreme Court judge. Do you guys... Okay, so here's an example of how strong the power of a state Supreme Court judge is. Or I think... No, I don't even think this has to be a state Supreme Court judge. I think just a local... I think just a local judge can do this. And I think that's what happened in this story. I might just bring up the story to read from, if I end up being wrong here. But there was a law in California that banned possession of a magazine for a firearm that could hold more than 10 rounds, including the chamber, I believe, as well. So I think really the magazines were limited at 9 rounds. I might be wrong, though. And so it suddenly overnight became a felony to possess magazines that the day before were legal just because of the capacity they held, right? And the traditional round amount in like a pistol magazine is like around 10, and in a rifle it's usually around 30 if it's something like an AR, you know. But California made that illegal, which was a massive L for a lot of gun owners and a lot of gun lovers, right? A woman who disagreed with this law decided to take it to court in front of I don't even think a state Supreme Court judge. I think it was just a normal ass, like a local elected judge, who saw the state law, I believe passed by Gavin Newsom, governor of the state, declaring that you could not own magazines that exceeded that size. And the judge ruled that it was unconstitutional on the grounds of the Second Amendment, referring to the Constitution as his basis for his ruling. And as far as I know, at least all the media outlets are reporting that as temporarily, at least, that law was no longer in effect because it had been deemed in court to be unconstitutional, and that the governor himself would have to make a motion to bring it in front of, I think, the state Supreme Court to reinstate it or something. Like, I think there was a process the governor would have to go through, Gavin Newsom would have to do to bring it back, but I might be wrong. Don't go and get yourself a 30-round mag for your rifle in California without looking into it. But I'm pretty sure that's what ended up happening. So, like, yeah, dude, like, local judges have a lot of power, dude. It's surprising. And so Trump wants to start on a local level weeding out the judges that don't like him or are impartial and fair, and start getting MAGA judges in place. This means that in every walk of life, if you have to deal with the law, you have to deal with the law controlled by MAGA, even on the lowest levels.
Think about it. Very few people who are watching this discussion tonight thought that the Supreme Court's decision on Citizens United or Roe v. Wade were good decisions. In fact, in my view, they were disastrous decisions. But we're kind of old-fashioned. We believe in the rule of law. That's what happened. Presidents appointed those people to the Supreme Court. We didn't go around saying, hey, you got to impeach Chief Justice Roberts and the other members. Terrible decision. That's not the way the American Constitution works. And that's what we believe. We actually believe in the Constitution.
True.
But it's not just Congress,
democracy,
or the media, or the judiciary that Trump is going after. He's now waging a vitriolic attack against major universities that are teaching courses or allowing activities he doesn't like. For years, we have heard conservatives talk about decentralized government, getting the government off the backs of the people. We've heard about education being a local issue. And now we have a president who is telling Harvard, Columbia, Princeton, and others what they can or cannot do. And in an absolutely unconstitutional and frightening way, federal agents have grabbed foreign students, thrown them into unmarked cars, and taken them to detention facilities. And what is their crime? What have they done that deserves that kind of treatment? Well, in at least one case, a woman wrote a article critical of Israel. In another case,
we covered this in a segment, I think 1 or 2 streams ago. I think it might be up on YouTube now. But yeah, our government is full on doing like the Gestapo fasci secret police tactic. They're black bagging people that are particularly if they can say, oh, you're an immigrant or you're here on a visa and you're critical of Israel, you're critical of Trump, you're like a loud protester, they will literally just black bag you, and it seems like ship you either off to God knows what country, probably not wherever you're from, based on how things have been going so far, or supposedly they might just send you straight to Guantanamo, which is insane to me. It is insane to me that, like, a in any way popular president has expanded Gitmo, and that has not upset most Americans. You got to understand how big of a selling point closing Gitmo was politically at one point in this country, and how much of a stain on Obama's legacy it was that he did not close Gitmo by the end of his second term. But hell, by the end of his first, by the midterms after his first term started, people expected it closed. He ran on that in 2008. So yeah, people were disappointed. People, like, it's surprising to me how people's perspective, just because of Trump and the personality cult, has flipped on Guantanamo Bay. It's actually wild.
Somebody attended a demonstration. Do you really grab people off of the street, throw them in unmarked cars, take them to detention centers because they expressed a political point of view? And unbelievably, he is now going after law firms that oppose them. Giant law firms. Can you imagine a president threatening a law firm because they represented a client or did something that you don't like? And Trump has also decided that he needs to lead the culture war in America. He has made himself chairman of the board of the Kennedy Center. So if you add all of these activities up, and I'm just talking about a small part of what he has done, it makes one thing very, very clear. Trump has very little respect for the Constitution of the United States and for the rule of law. He wants more and more power for himself and his fellow billionaires. He wants to lead an authoritarian nation. And to make a bad situation even worse, Trump and Musk are rapidly trying to dismember and destroy federal agencies.
Listen, I know I said this would be a palate cleanser and it would be less depressing than usual, but hey, it's Bernie Sanders, okay? Bernie Sanders is the part of this that makes it nice, okay? We love him. He's like he's our comfort politician.
Agencies that serve working families and the poor.
Hold on. Oh, that's Gore of my comfort politician on my timeline. Oh, great. Such a stupid bit, but I thought of it and I had to execute on it. I'm sorry. I had to. I feel like only half of you are going to get the Gore of my comfort character reference.
Musk has laid off thousands of workers at the Social Security Administration, which will make it harder for the elderly and the disabled to get the benefits that they paid for. It's a massive attack against Social Security. Trump and Musk have also decided to lay off some 83,000 employees at the Veterans Administration, which will mean that the men and
almost as many
women
at
put
the
their
IRS
lives
too,
on
right?
the line to defend
like
our country, our veterans,
he fired.
will see a deterioration in the health care they receive at the VA and the timeliness of the benefits that they earned. And then on top of all of that, Trump and his Republican colleagues are now working on a huge reconciliation bill, which will make massive cuts to Medicaid, education, nutrition, etc. To do what?
You know, now that the ball is rolling down the hill and there's no way of stopping it until the next election, we should just all be accelerationists. Because fuck it, why not? You know? Until the next election, of course. Or I guess until the midterms, then we take a break, and then we resume until the next election. Because, like, at this point, it's like, yeah, let's hope Trump does as much as possible to make as many Americans as possible suffer as a consequence of his actions, because how else are we going to get it through to these people? This personality cult has grown and grown. The worse Trump gets, at this point, it can't be like the dog pisses on the carpet, and an hour later you come home and you get upset at the dog and say, no, you can't do that. Because people don't make the connection. Americans are dogs, and you can't discipline a dog an hour after they pissed in your carpet. They won't get it. Their brains don't make that connection. Americans are the same way. I am hoping that Trump's actions start immediately having negative consequences. I'm talking like Trump signs a bill where he's like, we're gonna tariff all the I don't know, all the wheat imports from Ukraine. We're gonna make a lot of American wheat, a lot of American money. And it happens, and the next day there are like massive breadline next day, literal American breadlines because of what Trump did. Straight up breadlines because Trump just goes through and like tariffs 80% on Ukrainian wheat or something like that. Like, I'm telling you, dude. I'm telling you. Trump's going to keep doing shit like this, and we need to cheer it on because we need as many Americans as possible to learn the consequences of touching the stove here, okay? If the Americans are going to touch the stove, let's make sure it's not off. Let's make sure it's turned all the way on. Otherwise, they're not going to learn their lesson. And what I mean by making sure it's turned all the way on is whenever you see a Republican complaining about their lives being ruined by Trump, don't get all, oh, I'm sorry, we tried to tell you, come on, you can join the... Laugh at them and shame them. Make sure they feel an immense amount of embarrassment. I used to think the opposite was more effective, but based on how the right operates, it's clear that you actually do catch more flies with vinegar than with honey.
Why are they making these cuts? In order to give over $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1%. So that's where we are. That is the bad news, and all in all, it is a pretty dismal situation. So now, let me give you some good news, some very good news. And that is, over the last month, I and my House colleague, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, have been traveling the country in what I've called a fighting oligarchy tour. I've been to Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, Colorado, and Arizona, and the turnouts have been extraordinary. In Denver, we had more than 34,000 people turn out, the largest rally.
I may be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in most polls globally, AOC is the most popular politician on the planet, right? Like in comparison to all other politicians on Earth, in every country, unless discounting regimes that don't accurately report, like North Korea, I think AOC is the world's most popular politician. At least because, remember, she presides over a district, not over a whole country. So her sample size is smaller, and she has very strong support in her district. But where she occupies, in the area where she is, I'm pretty sure she is the most popular politician that there is around on Earth right now, at least from the polling that I've seen. So yeah, people really like AOC. I know that we like AOC, but to make it clear, even outside of the left, people really like AOC. And I think a lot of it comes from the fact that, and the right made no little effort to make sure we all knew this. AOC worked as a bartender, got her way through college working a bartending job, and is now a congresswoman. That's the kind of thing that makes Americans say, yeah, okay, yeah, the Fox News made sure we all saw her serving drinks in a bar. They made fun of her for it, but now the idea of being a hard worker and knowing the working man and then becoming a politician is popular. And so all that negative press that Fox News tried to make about AOC has backfired on them into positive press, where most Americans seem to associate AOC with being a working class hard worker that genuinely through merit worked her way up and got the position that she has now. And they also perceive her, on top of that, as someone who is an outsider to Washington and isn't bought into all of the, money buying or politics buying and dark money in Washington as well. And so she gets like a pretty across the aisle favorability. Even the right likes her a surprising amount. I mentioned it before. Trump won AOC's district, but AOC won hers quite strongly, which means a significant amount of AOC's voters voted for Trump as president and AOC as their congresswoman. Sounds crazy, but they liked them both for the same reason, actually. A lot of them responded on her Instagram post asking about that they liked Trump and her because they're both outsiders and they don't come off as establishment. Listen, populism is a brain rot. I have been telling you guys this for a while.
I have ever been a part of. And what I have learned from all of these rallies and meeting thousands and thousands of people is that the people of our country are sick and tired of Trumpism. They are tired of oligarchy.
I wish.
They're tired of authoritarianism, and they are prepared to fight back. And I should tell you, just to mention, I'm going to be in...
Well, to be fair, it was roughly 31% of Americans that voted for Trump in this election. Not half. 31% of Americans cast their ballot for Trump. That's actually not that much of America when you would assume it's closer to 50%, right? Like, these are a loud minority of people.
Out west next week, in a week and a half or so, we're going to California and other western states. And we are going to continue to rally the American people to stand up to Trumpism and his contempt for American democracy. And let me give you another very good piece of good news, and that is on Tuesday night, Susan Crawford took on Elon Musk and the $25 million that he spent to win a seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And I want you all to remember that just 5 months ago, Trump won a narrow victory in Wisconsin. And just the other day, Ms. Crawford won a strong victory. She won by 10 points. Pretty good.
Now, to be clear, that's kind of expected. In the coming elections, particularly the midterms coming up, it's expected and projected in most elections, or midterm elections, and these interim elections we're going to see, that the incumbent party has a disadvantage, depending on the area, right? But in this case, you got to consider Elon dumped $25 million into trying to ensure that the Republican Party won over Wisconsin. And now we're seeing that in this race, sentiment flipped pretty strongly, despite all the factors that might have counteracted that trend. It might suggest that even with all of Elon's money and all the ad space he's able to buy, people are getting fed up. And it wouldn't surprise me. You know, there may not be as much propaganda out there talking about how bad Trump is compared to how bad Biden is on the economy, but people's wallets will start to feel bad leadership in the way that it's been happening. You know, like, you can't cope about how totally good for the economy Trump is as a centrist forever. Eventually it's like, okay, well, these prices need to start dropping or I'm going to get pissed. And I think people are getting pissed.
Good victory in a state that Trump had won just 5 months before. Also on Tuesday night, in 2 congressional districts in Florida, where Trump had won by 30 points, Democratic candidates cut that margin in half. Pretty good. So, where do we go from here? I think the answer is quite obvious. We have got to educate, we've got to organize, we've got to fight back effectively with discipline and intelligence. And if we do that, in my view, we're going to win this thing. And right now, I should tell you, we are not only doing rallies around the country, We are also hiring organizers at the grassroots level to help us build the kind of grassroots infrastructure that we need if we're going to be successful. And let me just mention to you that just a few hours ago, I was on the phone with our friends in the 1st District of Iowa.
Zan, can we be expecting a second American Revolution? No. I don't know if I'm seeing that in the future right now, but I do expect people to get giga-pissed and for it to cause a bit of a political overturn in this country and for things to start to shift a little bit. Here, let's give Bernie the floor so he can finish what he has to say.
I had been to Iowa City last month, and we got a whole lot of folks coming out. We got names, we got emails, we called them up, and we had tonight, just a few hours ago.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt Bernie, but true. In the special elections that just happened in Florida, we didn't flip to go full blue, but some areas went purple. I saw people in my Discord giving live updates on it, and I was pretty happy to see some purple, where you do not expect it to happen. Florida, especially in those, well, I mean, it was areas around like Miami, but still, Florida is a very red place. I grew up there, and it is as red gets. Seeing any purple mixed in there outside of like Miami is a big deal. Miami, Tampa, and Orlando, I guess. Tallahassee, maybe? Tallahassee feels like a conservative city, but I guess it might be pretty progressive. I actually don't know how the politics in Tallahassee are. I don't remember the election map. I didn't pay much attention to Florida because I knew where it was going.
Over 500 people in the 1st District of Iowa on the telephone.
It sounds conservative, exactly.
Signed up to get to work, to help us organize, to knock on doors, to hold meetings, etc. And we are going to have organizers all over this country, especially in districts where Republican members of Congress won by slim majorities. And we're going to make sure that all of the people in those districts that were won by Republicans with small margins, they know loudly and clearly, they're going to hear from their constituents, that they must not vote to give huge tax breaks to billionaires by cutting Medicaid and other programs that working families desperately need. So yes, let me be very honest with you. The oligarchs are enormously powerful. No ifs, buts, and maybes. They have endless amounts of money. They control our economy. They own much of the media, and they have enormous influence over our political system. But from the bottom of my heart, I am convinced that if we are smart and if we're well organized, they can be defeated. If we stand together and not let them divide us up by the color of our skin or where we were born or our religion or our sexual orientation, if we bring our people together around an agenda that works for the many and not just the few, there is nothing in the world that can stop us. We can win. We will win.
Bernie Sanders isn't like a powerful speaker in the sense that he like drills his point into you in the way that a lot of like Obama. Obama, when he speaks, it feels like he's driving his point into you like a hammer and a nail. While with Bernie, it feels like you're like sitting on a park bench with like a relatable, chill guy and having like a very like good, productive conversation. Although in this case, it's very one-sided because he's just talking at you. And because of that, I think Bernie has benefited from this very strong feeling of relatability, especially to those in the middle and lower working classes, because he comes off as very genuine in a way that a lot of politicians don't. And I'm very glad that he's out here, especially because this is a good example of what I've been saying the Dems need to do more of. He's making dedicated videos for YouTube, edited and produced and everything for YouTube as a platform in order to go viral and reach an audience. This is the future of politics. It needs to embrace the internet. I know it's newfangled, it's associated with young people, but I mean, not really anymore, right? Like, I'd say my my generation, Gen Z, is the iPad generation. We're the generation that grew up with basically nonstop computer and internet access. If you didn't have it at home, of which I didn't for a fair amount of my life because it was expensive, it was at the library, it was at school, it was at friends' houses, there was Wi-Fi at restaurants, and this always meant you had some kind of access to the internet. And that's a big deal, you know? Like that, we grew up on that, and so for a long time, I think the internet was seen, especially by the mainstream media sphere and politicians, certainly, as a waste of time to even look at and talk about. You know, whenever the internet was legislated on, famously, these boomers were like incapable of understanding what a direct message was. Like, what is a Finsta? What are you? Are you hiding secret Finsta accounts from parents? And the guy's like, Finsta is just a term that kids made up for a secret extra Instagram account, or not? Is it Instagram account they make to hide from their parents? He's like, but are you facilitating the Finsta account feature? And it just goes back and forth for 10 minutes. That happened. And that was how most politicians engaged with the internet for a long time. And the right switched off of that way of handling the internet sooner than the left did. And because of this, MAGA and the Republican Party dominated internet culture, and now the Dems, people like Bernie, mainstream Democrats, and outlets like CNN and MSNBC, are just now having to catch up and start embracing the internet, embracing specifically internet-only content production to reach a much wider audience, because I think they kind of denied that their mediums were kind of dying out and the internet was taking the top spot, and now the full realization of there's no going back now, we gotta go digital, has happened, and now it's going to be a mad dash to catch up. But Bernie is doing a good job here. This is a really good example of what the Democratic Party and mainstream progressive media in America needs to be doing, and that is getting online. And not just getting online in a half-assed way, but making a dedicated online presence that's meant to grow and go viral. It's critical. CNN needs to have a virality team. A team of experts on algorithms and viral content that work nonstop to research whatever algorithms on whatever website they're posting on and how they operate, and to be making dedicated high-end content for YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and Reels and Threads and all these other platforms. Regardless, though, I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but if any of that made sense to you, if you enjoyed what I had to say, found it educational, or in any way entertaining, then please consider leaving a like and a comment, whether you're watching this live or after the fact when it comes out as its own video on YouTube. For those that don't know, every single like is totally free, takes half a second, and is the best way to support me in the algorithm. In fact, every single thumbs up is like a little electric shock to the YouTube algorithm that forces it to push my content out to more people and basically boost me. You know, it just gives me a boost. I really do appreciate it. It helps to grow the channel, as my top lip just won't stop itching because my mustache has grown out too much. I need to shave. Regardless, though, also consider commenting. Comments and likes are the best way to boost the channel. They kind of compound on each other, so I really do appreciate likes and comments. And if you haven't already and you're new here, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon to turn on all notifications so that YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload new videos in the future. You can also follow my social medias, which are linked down below in the description, including and especially my fan Discord, which is the main hub of my community and fan base. I actually host gaming events, call-in streams, watch parties, and movie nights there, as well as announcing all my new uploads and streams, so you won't miss anything as long as you hit that link down below to join. By the way, tomorrow night, I will be hosting a watch party. No stream tomorrow because it'll be my day off, but tomorrow night, I will be hosting a watch party. Not sure what we'll be watching. It'll either be The Boys or The Walking Dead. I'm going to leave it up to a vote at the watch party to decide what we end up watching. So hopefully you guys can make it. Consider joining. And finally, If you want to support me directly, financially, help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, then please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me financially through YouTube, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or maybe buy some custom Xander Hall merch through the Streamlabs link down below in the description. Regardless of how you support me though, thank you so much for watching as always, and I hope you have a good one.